Okay, then what about well, the solution isn't to get workers to shut up and identify with the PMC. We need a universalization of the PMC itself. All citizens, if they were better educated, had a liberal education, this would ultimately solve the problem of democracy. So, a liberally educated citizenry is what we need.
Yes, we tried this. Everybody's got to go to college. If everybody goes to college, then everybody will get a good job. Yeah, that's the ideology of the 70s and 80s.
Mhm.
Comes out of the new left, and it becomes okay, you can't rely on the workers to make the revolution. They're a labor aristocracy, their trade unions are all embedded into the thing. It's got to be the students, the young people, the educated people, the people who can see that there's a problem, right? So everybody has to go to the university. One of the things that happens is the university becomes worse when you rush to send everybody to it without creating conditions in society where everybody actually does have the skills and capabilities. So then they become obsessed with trying to generate these in the secondary schools. College readiness becomes the obsession, and they try that for a while. But what ultimately happens is that while they're able to increase the percentage significantly and it, dramatically change society, the attempt to send everybody to college, they can't actually get everybody there. First, the act of trying to get everybody there causes lots of people to come through who don't actually have real meaningful skills because they've been pushed through and given good grades, even though they aren't able. Uh, and secondly, you can't absorb all of these people in the kinds of roles that they would need to be in to maintain the socialization that you want them to have. So when people aren't able ultimately to get into the prestige roles, they then develop various kinds of coping techniques and mechanisms for dealing with the fact that they've been shut out of the prestige roles. And some of these involve deliberately trying to set themselves above the people who didn't go to college. And if not deliberately, then sometimes even on just a subconscious level, wanting all the time to emphasize that they got something out of the college experience, which is the right think, the right values, the truth, real information, knowledge, and fetishizing all of these things and turning them into a kind of dogma. So it degrades what the university education is when it turns into this kind of dogma to protect people who have been economically unsuccessful from having to confront that, and so it has heavily epistemic degrading tendencies on the people in that situation over time. And then also, there's an invitation for the people who have been successful to use the willingness of the fallen professionals to believe that they're more knowledgeable than other people to say, you are a really smart, educated person. So you understand that we have to run the society in this particular kind of way for it to be, acceptable, or for it to be competitive, or it to be, able to get by. And because people want to identify with the successful people and think of themselves as with the successful people, this happens. It used to get talked about all the time in terms of workers wanting to be small business people or workers wanting to be petty bourgeois. If you want to get your own truck, you want to go out on your own, start your own plumbing business, right? But the same thing happens at the level of the university educated people because they have the same problem. You have a large percentage, which is more than can actually be in the prestige roles. And then this extra part of the population becomes badly degenerated by that fact. And part of this is kind of stuff you could even describe as lumpen, insofar as it involves begging for money. A lot of what university educated people start doing is begging other people for money because they're not able to find some form of stable employment that would allow them to think more like members of the proletariat. And this, academics do this all the time at the level of, applying for grants. And when you're applying for grants, when you're begging or writing applications for jobs continuously because you never have any stability, you are constantly thinking about how you appear to somebody else. And you have this image of you might get this thing in the future, but only if you appear a certain way to someone else. So the way that you behave is continuously disciplined with reference to the successful professional that you're trying to impress so that you can join that person and become one of those people.